going to walk you guys through the chapter 13 problems. Dr. Zadig accidentally sent us chapter 14, but I am sending you chapter 13 because I was looking at the notes, and the notes are definitely chapter 13 stuff. So he didn't like accidentally mistypo it and then, do it the other way. So no, we are actually in chapter 13, not 14. All right, so I have bronchitis to a certain extent, and the coughing has gotten worse. So unfortunately, you're just going to have to deal with it. All right, let me grab that. All right, so we're going to do number one. How many grams of each sodium chloride and dextrose are present in a 1,000 milliliter IV bag with 0.18% sodium chloride and 4% dextrose? So very simple. Take 1,000 milliliters, multiply it by your 18%, which is out of 100, and you get 1.8 grams NaCl. And then for your second one, you just do 4 out of 100, and that is 40 grams of dextrose. Okay. Number two, how many grams each of sodium chloride, potassium chloride, calcium chloride, and dextrose are contained in a 500 milliliter IV bag of dextrose 5 lactate ringers? So D5W, which is your 5%, is your normal isotonic, and then your electrolytes. So you have, lactate ringers is supposed to reflect more of what all the electrolytes are in your body. And so that's why it has such different varying amounts of each of these. So if you've never encountered lactate ringers, that is what it is. If you look in the book, there is a table. Let me see if I can pull it up. Yeah, there. All right, so here is the book, and go to chapter 13, which is, yeah, we're in it. So in chapter 13, there's a table, if I can find it. Here it is. So this has all of the standard set solutions right here. And so this is the one that we're looking at, is this lactated ringers with 5% in it. So D5LR. I'm just going to point out some stuff. So you have sodium chloride. So this is isotonic, and this is 0.45 sodium chloride. This is hypotonic. Then you have 5% dextrose, which is isotonic. Then you have 10% dextrose in water, which is hypertonic. And then you have these ones, which are isotonic. This is slightly hypotonic, I believe. I'm not quite sure. I've never used some of these, but because I didn't work hospital. But I do know this from compounding. The reason you would have hypertonic and hypotonic in certain cases is that, say, a patient goes into shock, you want hypertonic to get them to have some blood pressure, because literally they just don't have any blood pressure. So you use hypertonic, it hurts their head. Or hypotonic, I can't remember. The other reason is that if you have somebody bleeding out from, I believe, a stroke into their brain, like an aneurysm, you want to relieve the pressure off of their brain, and so you would use those as well. So this stuff is simple calculations, but the applications are important, and that's more or less what I'm trying to get at, is that it doesn't seem important because what we're doing right now is very simple. So sorry to go on a bit of a tangent there, but you can just fast forward out of that because it's YouTube. And so we're just going to go through and put all of the different percentages from that table. And then this is 5%. And so for this one, it's 4.3 grams. This one is 0.15 grams. And this one is 0.165 grams. This one is 25 grams. All right, a patient received 250 ml of an infusion at a rate of 40 milliliters per hour. What is the infusion rate or fusion time in hours and in minutes? So take 250 ml, divide by 40 ml, and then you find that that is 6.25 hours. So you have 6 hours, and then 0.25 times 60 is 15 minutes. So it is 6 hours and 15 minutes. All right, number 4. A patient was administered 150 ml of D5W at a rate of 25 milliliters an hour. If the infusion was to begin at 8 a.m., what time was it completed? So 150 mLs divided by 25 mLs an hour. So these get canceled out, and you find, well, this is also per hour. So then you find that it is 6 hours. So if we started at 8 and then we went for 6 hours, it would be 2 o'clock. So that infusion would be done at 2 p.m. All right, let's do number 5. A patient received 500 mLs of D5W half normal saline at the rate of 15 drops a minute. If the administration set used to deliver 15 drops per milliliter, calculate the infusion time in hours and minutes. So the nice thing about this is that you have 15 drops. Remember that GTT is drops. That's the shorthand. Then you have 15 drops per milliliter. So these two cancel out, and you can find that is milliliters a minute. So you have 500 milliliters, which is, you can convert that to 500 minutes. And then you divide that by 60 minutes per hour to find your hours. You find it's 8.3 hours, which is 8 hours and 20 minutes. because you take 0.3 times 60. And you find that that's 20. Sorry, I'm trying to just make sure that I cross and dot every T and every I and do everything right. All right, number 8. Lovely. Okay. All right. I don't know why I have everything open today. All right, daptomycin, cubicin. So it's a myosin. So they're used for kind of bad bugs, usually all the mycins, as far as I remember. But I will just be very honest. Antibiotics is like the worst section I'm on. Then comes cardiac drugs is my second worst, and then diabetes. So like those 3 I need to review. But antibiotics is hard to keep straight because there's a lot of interactions. There's a lot of resistance. So it's a lot more memorization than like logic. All right. So they need 4 milligrams per kilogram is recommended in administration over a 30-minute period by IV infusion in 0.9 sodium chloride. How many milliliters of a vial containing 500 milligrams per 5 ml should be added to a 100 milliliter bag of normal saline treating a 165-pound patient? So let's first, so we have our 165-pound patient. Need to convert that to pounds to kilograms. And then we need, for every 1 kilogram, we need 4 milligrams. And then for every 500 milligrams, we have 5 milliliters. So this works out that you get rid of the pounds, get rid of the kilograms, get rid of the milligrams, and then you just end up with milliliters, and you find that that is 3 milliliters is what you need to add to your 100 ml bag. Now, if I was trying to find out like the therapeutic index, so the therapeutic index is probably this, which is the amount that that person needs in order to minimally or optimally, most of the time it's optimally, by studies to find out where the bugs are killed with antibiotics or where symptoms are relieved with other drugs like pain relievers. So that is your therapeutic index. What you also want to do is make sure you have a decent amount of concentration. I would probably take the, however milligrams this is and figure out the concentration in milliliters and make sure it wasn't too dilute, because that's the other thing with therapeutic index is that usually you don't want it too dilute. But that is something for another day. But I'm just showing you guys kind of, I'm opening my head and showing you what I know. I don't want too much of a know-it-all. All right. So 10, they want to a fluconazole injection that contains 400 milligrams of fluconazole in 200 milliliters of normal saline injection for infusion. Calculate the concentration of fluconazole in milligrams per milliliter. Super simple. 400 milligrams per 200 ml. It's 2 milligrams per milliliter. All right, 11. Intravenous immunoglobulin has been administered in the pre-transplantation of organs at a rate of 0.08 milliliters per kilogram per minute. Calculate the number of milliliters administered to a 70 kilogram patient if a 10% weight per volume solution is infused over a period of 4 hours. So for this one, let me figure this out. So for this one, you take the 0.08 milliliters per kilogram per minute, multiply it by the 70 kilograms, and you find that that is 5.6 milliliters a minute for this patient. And then you have to do 5.6 milliliter a minute times 4 hours times 60 minutes in an hour. So then those cancel out, so then you have just 1344 mLs, or 1.3 liters, basically. And that's all they want. They just want to know the amount of milliliters for this question. The 10% weight per volume threw me off, so sometimes they'll throw in extra information that you don't need. So just be aware of that. All right, 20. The biotechnology drug Erbitux, cetuximab. So one of the first things that you should know is that anytime it has a mab on the bottom, it's a bio drug. So that means that it is probably a something made by bacteria, and then we extract it, and then we put it into a vial, or we'll use animals or something, or we'll use, but they're generally very engineered, and they're very, they usually have to be, you know, refrigerated, or they're like insulins. Insulins are a bio drug because it's made by a bacteria. So just know that anytime you see mab, that's what it is. So they use this in the treatment of colorectal cancer. It has a loading dose of, and I'll explain what a loading dose is in a second, 400 milligrams per meter squared, administered over an intravenous infusion over a 120-minute period, using an IV set that drops 15 drops a milliliter. Calculate A, the dose for a patient with a BSA of 1.6 meters squared. So that's easy. Oh, wait, no. 1.6 meter squared. So that's 640 milligrams. And then B, the rate of delivery in drops per minute for a 250 ml of an IV fluid containing the dose. So we do 250 ml, and we have 15 drops a milliliter. So that cancels that out. And then we want to know how long it is. So we need to divide it by 120 minutes to find our drops per minute. So then you find that it is 31.25 drops per minute, but you have to round this down to 31 because you can't set an infusion set to, you can't put a quarter of a drop on the infusion set. Just not going to happen. And usually if you were doing 31 drops, most time people would just set it up to 30 because I believe that that's a standard, whereas 31's not exactly standard. So I'm going to explain what a loading dose is in a second, because this is a loading dose. When we have patients come into the hospital, and I did this with kinetics when I was doing research. So I'll have to, come on, give me space. All right, so you have time and concentration. And so what happens is that over time, you start an IV and the patient needs to get to the therapeutic window. So the therapeutic window is in here, but during this time, this patient is not being treated. So instead of just starting a normal IV, what we'll do is that we'll give them a huge dose called a loading dose. And so that just takes this. So that just takes this way up and then over so that that time that you're waiting for the patient to get treated gets cut down. And so it helps you know that the drug is working much faster, much better. So that's why this stuff is important. That it's more the applications are important right now and not so much the math. The math is very basic right now. So how many milliliters of injection containing 1 gram of drug and 4 milliliters should be used in filling a medication order requiring 275 milligrams of the drug to be added to a 500 milliliter set. So if the solution is administered at the rate of 1.6 milliliters per minute, how many milligrams of the drug will the patient receive in 1 hour? Okay. So I'm going to take this. Oh, no, it's not milliliter or milligram, it's milliliter. Take this and figure out how many milliliters that we have to give them. You're going to change gram to milligram. So let me find that that is 1.1 milliliter is the amount that would be added to the 500 milliliter bag. So then we know that there's 275 milligrams in that 500 milliliter bag. So that means it is a concentration of 55 milligrams per milliliter. And then we find that we take 1.6 milliliters a minute and we multiply that by 60 minute per 1 hour. And so we find that that is 96 milliliters. So then in 1 hour, but it doesn't matter. So then you take the 96 milliliters in 1 hour and multiply it by your concentration from up here, milligrams per 1 ml. And so then these cancel out, and then you find that that is 52.8 milligrams per hour. And so that is your other answer. Oh. There we go. All right, so that was question 21. All right, 24. All right, a physician orders 35 milligrams of amphotericin B, which is, I believe, another antibiotic. But and then 25 units of heparin. So heparin, I believe, is an anticoagulant. Yes. To be administered intravenously in 1,000 ml of D5W over an 8-hour period. So 1,000 ml D5W, and it's going to be infused over an 8-hour period. So we are, all right. So in filling the medication order, the available sources of the additives are a 50 milligram vial of Ampho B in 10 mLs. And then a syringe containing 10 U of heparin per ml. All right, so A, how many milliliters of each additive should be used in filling the medication order? So we do 35 milligrams, 50 milligrams, 10 ml. Actually, I'm going to do something. And no, I won't. And so you find that that is 7 milliliters of Ampho B that we need. And then we have to do 25 U per ml time per. Oh, no, it's not 25. Never mind. I'm 25 U times 10 U per ml. Oh my gosh, I am sorry. I am. Okay. So then you find that that's 2.5 milliliters of heparin. Oh my gosh. I don't know why my brain spazzed out. Okay, so B, how many milliliters of the intravenous fluid per minute should the patient receive to administer the amount over that designated period? So they're having 1,000 mLs. This is added to the 1,000 mLs of D5W. Then you just divide that by 8 hours times 60 minutes an hour. you find that that is 2.083 milliliter a minute. So that's how quickly. I'd probably, if this was a hospital, it would be probably either 2.1 or 2.08, depending on how well the infusion stat. But once again, I have not worked hospital. I don't know. I plan on working hospital a little bit before I graduate, doing a rotation, so I know what I'm doing. What I did do was I did all the heparin dosing